Sir, hands off. Not every folder is open season for curiosity.
These aren't random papers, they're my case notes.
Case notes? In a courthouse? You look like some kind of clerk.
No. I'm here to defend the motion in courtroom 4.
Really? You're saying you're an attorney?
That's exactly what I'm saying, Esther.
Doesn't look like it.
Looks can fool people, and yet here I am, the defense attorney you assumed I wasn't.
Marcus Kane had been stationed at the downtown criminal justice building for 13 years, spending his last 9 years assigned to the courthouse complex on Jefferson Avenue. During those 9 years, he accumulated 18 separate complaints, 18 documented incidents where Black lawyers, Hispanic defense attorneys, and Asian legal advocates were stopped, challenged, and questioned about their right to be in areas where they were lawfully conducting their work. Every single complaint had been brushed aside and classified as a simple misunderstanding. The administration called him diligent, his immediate supervisor praised his attention to protocol, but no one acknowledged what he truly was, a gatekeeper who couldn't fathom that legal professionals came in every color. On a Tuesday morning in the city's legal district, everything about Marcus Kane's protected position came crashing down. Isaiah Grant had just walked into the criminal justice building to present a vital suppression motion that would determine whether his client faced 12 years in prison or walked out a free man. He was an experienced criminal defense lawyer running his own solo practice, 13 years of courtroom experience, and a solid reputation for thorough case preparation and persuasive advocacy. He'd won dismissals in cases that seemed unwinnable. He'd argued before appellate panels. He'd been interviewed by the city newspaper about inequities in the criminal justice system. That Tuesday morning, he was a Black man in his late 30s, wearing a tailored gray suit, carrying a professional briefcase, reviewing case documents at a table in the attorney conference room. And to Officer Marcus Kane, that could only signal one thing: he was somewhere he shouldn't be. That incorrect assumption sparked a confrontation that would end with Kane's dismissal, a formal ethics complaint filed with the state bar, and a $5 million lawsuit that would expose the deep-rooted bias embedded in courthouse security practices. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from. If this is your first visit to our channel, please hit subscribe now. Stories like this one need to reach more people, and your support helps us continue bringing these truths to light. The criminal justice building on Jefferson Avenue was a massive concrete structure where the wheels of criminal procedure churned through hundreds of cases every single day. Arraignments, preliminary hearings, motions, full trials. The building contained courtrooms, holding facilities, prosecution offices, and attorney conference rooms where lawyers reviewed discovery and prepared their legal arguments. The attorney conference space on the 4th floor was a modest room with 4 tables, file cabinets, and a photocopier. It was designated specifically for attorneys to use before their court appearances. A sign posted on the door clearly stated, "Attorney Conference Room, authorized personnel only." Isaiah Grant had entered at 8:19 that morning, 41 minutes before his scheduled suppression hearing. He needed every minute. The case was complicated. His client, a 23-year-old named Devin, was facing aggravated robbery charges based on eyewitness identification that Isaiah believed was deeply flawed, cross-racial identification under poor lighting, suggestive photo lineup procedures, no corroboration. Isaiah had filed a motion to suppress the identification testimony. If he prevailed, the prosecution's entire case would fall apart. If he lost, his client was looking at 10 to 15 years. Isaiah was 39 years old. He'd grown up on the east side of the city, watched too many people he cared about get swallowed by the system, and decided he wanted to be the one who pushed back. He'd worked his way through college and then law school, graduating in the top 15% of his class. He'd spent 3.5 years as a public defender before starting his own firm. He took on cases that other attorneys turned away: the difficult clients, the complex facts, the defendants who couldn't pay big firm rates but deserved someone who would fight hard. He'd placed his briefcase on one of the tables in the attorney conference room and spread out his materials: police reports, witness statements, photo lineups, expert reports on eyewitness identification reliability, case law on suppression standards. He was making detailed notes in the margins, cross-referencing legal precedents, building his argument point by point. His state bar card was clipped to his suit jacket in clear view. His name was printed on the daily court calendar posted outside every courtroom. He had every right to be exactly where he was. Officer Marcus Kane was making his standard rounds on the 4th floor when he walked past the attorney conference room. He glanced through the small window in the door and saw Isaiah sitting at the table surrounded by documents, and his brain made an instant assumption: black man going through files, probably not supposed to be there, probably a defendant who got confused and wandered into the wrong area, or maybe someone trying to access confidential records. Definitely not an attorney. Attorneys don't look like that. Kane pushed the door open and stepped inside, his hand moving to rest near his radio. "Sir, step back from that table. You can't be going through those files." Isaiah looked up from his notes. He'd been so focused on his hearing preparation that the interruption took a second to register. Then he saw the courthouse security officer, saw the suspicion written across his face, and understood immediately what was happening. He'd been through versions of this before, not often, but enough times to recognize the pattern. "These aren't random files." Isaiah kept his voice calm and professional. "These are my case materials." Kane stepped closer, his eyes scanning the papers spread across the table. "Case materials in a courthouse. You some kind of paralegal or assistant?" There it was, the assumption, the automatic dismissal of any possibility that Isaiah could be an attorney, the casual suggestion that he must be support staff, clerical help, anything other than a lawyer preparing to argue before a judge. Isaiah felt the familiar combination of frustration and weary recognition. "No, I'm here to argue a suppression motion in courtroom 6. Kane's expression shifted from suspicion to outright disbelief. "Hold on a second. You're telling me you're an attorney?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you." Isaiah gestured toward the bar card clipped to his jacket. "My name is Isaiah Grant. I'm a criminal defense attorney. This is the attorney conference room. I have a suppression hearing in 37 minutes. Everything I'm doing here is precisely what I'm supposed to be doing." Kane looked at the bar card, but his skepticism didn't fade. "I don't know about that." The words hung there, 3 words that revealed everything, not based on facts, not based on credentials, just a feeling, an assumption, a gut reaction that this black man couldn't possibly be a lawyer. Isaiah set down his pen and stood up, giving Kane his full attention. "And yet here I am, the defense attorney you immediately assumed I wasn't. Do you think security officers should verify credentials before questioning attorneys? Leave your answer below." Kane's face hardened. "Look, I don't know who you are, but I need to check this out. You could have found that card somewhere. People try all kinds of things in courthouses." Isaiah's patience was running out. "Officer, look at my bar card, Isaiah Grant, state bar number 3279941. You can verify it on the Bar Association website right now. You can check the court calendar posted outside courtroom 6. You can call the clerk's office. My name is on today's docket. I'm listed as defense counsel for State versus Devin Mitchell, scheduled for 9 o'clock. I have every legal right to be in this room preparing my case." Kane pulled out his radio. "I'm going to need to call this in." "Call what in?" "I've identified myself. I've shown you my credentials. I've told you exactly why I'm here. What rule am I breaking?" "You're acting hostile." "I'm acting like an attorney who's being profiled while trying to prepare for a hearing that could determine whether my client spends the next decade in prison or goes free. There's a difference." Another courthouse security officer appeared in the doorway, responding to Kane's radio call. Officer Linda Martinez had been working courthouse security for 6 years and had a strong reputation for good judgment and conflict resolution. "What's going on here?" Kane gestured toward Isaiah. "This individual claims to be an attorney, but I'm not convinced. Says he's preparing for a hearing." Martinez looked at Isaiah, then at the files spread across the table, then at the bar card on his jacket. She walked closer and read the card. "Isaiah Grant, State Bar Association." She pulled out her phone and opened the Bar Association website, typed in the bar number. The result appeared instantly: active attorney, good standing, admitted 2012, no disciplinary history. She looked at Kane, her voice flat. "He is an attorney. That's a valid bar card. And this is the attorney conference room where attorneys are supposed to be working." Kane's face flushed. "I was just verifying things." "No, you were making assumptions." Martinez turned to Isaiah. "Attorney Grant, I apologize for this interruption. You have every right to be here. Isaiah nodded, but his expression was firm. This isn't the first time this has happened, not just to me. I've heard from other black attorneys in this building who've been stopped, questioned, mistaken for defendants, asked to prove they're really lawyers. And it's always the same officer. He looked directly at Kane. You saw a black man with legal files and immediately assumed I was doing something wrong. You didn't ask for my credentials first. You didn't check the sign on the door that says attorney conference room. You didn't consider that I might actually belong here. You started with suspicion and accusation. Kane opened his mouth to respond, but Martinez cut him off. Officer Kane, return to your post. I'll handle this from here. Kane hesitated, then walked out, his pride wounded but his bias still intact. Martinez stayed behind. Mr. Grant, I want you to know this will be reported. What happened here is completely unacceptable. I appreciate that, but reporting isn't enough. I want to know how many other attorneys have been stopped by Officer Kane. I want to see his complaint record because I guarantee this isn't an isolated incident. Martinez nodded slowly. I've heard things, complaints, patterns, but they always get dismissed as misunderstandings. That's exactly the problem. It's not a misunderstanding when it keeps happening. It's profiling, and I'm going to document it thoroughly. Isaiah checked his watch. He had 33 minutes before his hearing. He couldn't let this derail his preparation. He sat back down at the table and returned to his notes, but the interruption had broken his concentration, the anger simmering just beneath his professional composure. By the time Isaiah walked into courtroom 6, he'd pushed the encounter into a compartment he could deal with later. Right now, his client needed him focused. The hearing lasted 95 minutes. Isaiah presented his suppression motion with precision and conviction, citing case law, challenging the reliability of the identification, demonstrating the constitutional violations in the procedure. The judge took the matter under advisement but indicated he was leaning toward suppression. Isaiah had done his job effectively. After the hearing concluded, Isaiah went directly to the court administrator's office and filed a formal complaint against Officer Marcus Kane, racial profiling, harassment of an attorney while performing professional duties, creating a hostile work environment for attorneys of color. He requested Kane's complete complaint history. Initially, the administrator resisted. That's personnel information. We can't just release that. Isaiah's voice turned cold. I'm an attorney who was profiled while preparing for a court appearance. I have a right to know if there's a pattern of this behavior. And if you don't provide it voluntarily, I'll file a right to know request, and then I'll file a lawsuit that will make this public record anyway. The administrator looked at him for a long moment, then pulled the file, 18 complaints over 9 years, 17 of them involving attorneys of color being stopped, questioned, or accused of being in unauthorized areas. All dismissed, all marked as communication issues or misunderstandings. Isaiah photographed every single page. This isn't a communication issue. This is systematic discrimination, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows about it. Within 48 hours, Isaiah had contacted every attorney named in those complaints. 9 of them agreed to participate in a joint action, all black or Latino, all with similar stories, stopped while preparing for hearings, questioned about their credentials, told they didn't look like attorneys, accused of being in restricted areas when they were exactly where they belonged. Should courthouse security officers face immediate termination after multiple documented profiling complaints? Let us know what you think. The story broke 4 days later. Local news picked it up first. City attorneys allege racial profiling by courthouse security officer, then the legal publications, then the national media outlets. The City Bar Association issued a strong statement condemning the pattern of discrimination. The state NAACP called for a full investigation. The ACLU offered to provide litigation support. Officer Marcus Kane was placed on administrative leave within 1 week. The court administration tried to contain the situation, but the evidence was overwhelming: 18 complaints over 9 years, 17 involving attorneys of color, all dismissed without meaningful investigation, the pattern absolutely undeniable. Kane was terminated 4 weeks after the incident. The termination letter was direct and damning. Officer Kane engaged in a systematic pattern of racial profiling against attorneys of color over a 9-year period, He repeatedly questioned the credentials and presence of Black and Latino attorneys while they were performing their professional duties. He created a hostile and discriminatory environment. His actions violated court policy, civil rights protections, and professional standards. His employment is terminated effective immediately. He is prohibited from working in courthouse security in any jurisdiction. Kane's union initially defended him, but once the full complaint record became public, they quietly backed away. He issued a brief statement through an attorney. "I never intended to discriminate against anyone. I was trying to maintain courthouse security. If my actions were perceived as biased, I apologize." Isaiah's response was public and unforgiving. "This wasn't about perception. This was about action. You stopped me and 17 other attorneys of color over 9 years. You questioned our credentials while white attorneys moved freely through the building. You created an environment where we had to prove we belonged in our own workplace. That's not security. That's racism with a badge." The lawsuit came 7 weeks later. 10 plaintiffs, Isaiah Grant and 9 other attorneys. The claims were comprehensive: racial profiling and discrimination, violation of civil rights under federal and state law, hostile work environment, interference with the practice of law, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent supervision by court administration. The defendant was the city government and the court administration. The evidence was devastating: 18 complaints over 9 years, 17 involving attorneys of color, all dismissed without investigation. Kane's own words captured on security footage in several incidents revealing his bias. Testimony from the 10 plaintiffs about the impact on their ability to practice law effectively. The city settled within 6 months. $5 million divided among the 10 plaintiffs. Isaiah received $600,000 and donated a significant portion to legal aid organizations serving communities of color. The court administration implemented comprehensive reforms: mandatory bias training for all courthouse security personnel, a zero-tolerance policy for profiling complaints, an independent review board to investigate discrimination allegations, random audits of security stops to identify patterns, a formal public apology to the attorneys who had been profiled. Isaiah testified at a city council hearing about discrimination in the justice system. "I didn't expect to become an advocate for this issue," he said, his voice measured but forceful. "I was just trying to prepare for a hearing. I was doing my job. But Officer Kane saw a Black man with legal files and assumed I was a threat, an intruder, anything but what I actually was: a licensed attorney preparing to argue before a judge." He paused, looking directly at the council members. "I had credentials. I had a bar card. My name was on the court calendar. And I still got stopped and questioned. So imagine what happens to Black defendants who walk into that courthouse. If the officers can't believe a Black attorney belongs there, how do they treat Black people accused of crimes? How does that bias shape every single interaction in that building?" The room fell silent. "I've practiced law for 13 years before that Tuesday morning. I'd appeared in that courthouse hundreds of times. But that was the day I realized that no amount of credentials would protect me from someone's assumptions. No amount of professional achievement would change the fact that some people see my skin color before they see anything else." Isaiah continued his criminal defense practice, but he also became a vocal advocate. He spoke at law schools about bias in the legal system. He trained young attorneys of color on how to document and report profiling incidents. He pushed for policy reforms at the State Bar Association. He testified before legislative committees about the need for accountability in courthouse security. The security camera footage from the courthouse became required viewing in legal ethics courses. Isaiah's calm dismantling of Kane's assumptions became a teaching moment about professionalism under pressure. His thorough documentation of the pattern became a model for how to build a strong discrimination case. But his core message never wavered. "This isn't about me having credentials. This is about a system that allowed a security officer to profile attorneys for 9 years without any real consequences. This is about bias so normalized that questioning a Black attorney's right to be in a courthouse felt like reasonable security practice. This is about assumptions that operate below the surface of official policy but shape who gets treated with dignity and who has to constantly prove they belong." Officer Kane's career is over. That's one form of consequence. The city paid $5 million. That's accountability of a sort. But money and terminations don't change the fact that 17 attorneys were profiled while simply doing their jobs. They don't erase the countless moments when we had to prove ourselves to someone who'd already decided we didn't belong. They don't address the constant stress of wondering every time you walk into a courthouse whether you'll be stopped, questioned, treated like a suspect instead of an officer of the court. The real question is what changes now? Do court administrators finally take complaints seriously after one incident instead of 18? Do they finally accept that security can't be used as an excuse for profiling? Do they finally understand that every person in a courthouse, from judges to defendants, deserves to be treated without bias? Because if we don't fix the systems that allowed Marcus Kane to profile attorneys for 9 years, if we don't address the assumptions that teach people a black man with case files must be doing something wrong, if we don't hold institutions accountable for the discrimination that happens in their buildings, then we're just waiting for the next officer, the next attorney, the next pattern that takes years and multiple victims to expose. Comment below if you think one documented profiling incident should trigger immediate investigation and potential termination, and if you believe stories like this need to be told, if you think accountability matters and real systemic change starts with exposure, then hit that subscribe button because we're going to keep sharing these stories, we're going to keep demanding better, we're going to keep fighting for a world where a defense attorney can prepare for a hearing without being told he doesn't look like he belongs. This isn't just about one security officer or one attorney.